January of 2019 began like any other ordinary weekend for millions of men across the United States. They drank their morning coffee, checked their social media feeds, and continued with their lives trusting in the brands they had known for decades. And then, everything exploded. A single advertisement triggered the fastest consumer revolt in all of corporate history. Men all across the country started posting furious videos, destroying products they had been loyal to for years. The social media platforms collapsed under the weight of organized boycott campaigns. Customer service lines became completely saturated with cancellation demands. By Monday morning, the executives at Gillette, one of the most trusted companies in all of the United States, watched helplessly as a century of brand loyalty crumbled in real time. The stock market analysts couldn't understand what they were witnessing. If you want to see how a single decision can destroy a billion-euro empire, hit like and subscribe to the channel to learn about the most shocking business disasters ever recorded. To understand how this catastrophe began, we have to go back to the moment when Gillette dominated the entire world. Mr. King Camp Gillette started a revolution in 1901 that would shape masculine culture for more than a century. He founded the American Safety Razor Company with an idea that was simple, yet brilliant. Disposable razor blades that eliminated the dangerous straight razors that men had been using for generations. The transformation was immediate and dramatic. Multiple generations of American men learned to shave using exclusively Gillette products. The fathers taught their sons the techniques of shaving with the same exact brand that their own fathers had trusted. The morning ritual became a sacred tradition that connected men across the decades. Gillette did much more than just sell razors. They sponsored baseball games, boxing matches, and football championships. Every single major sporting event seemed to carry their advertising, generating deep emotional connections with male audiences who associated the brand with victory, strength, and success. By the decade of the 1950s, Gillette controlled the shaving markets in Europe, Latin America, and Asia. The company introduced revolutionary products like the Track 2 in 1971, the Atra in 1977, and the highly innovative Sensor in 1989. Each innovation reinforced its position as the undisputed leader in masculine personal care. When Procter & Gamble acquired Gillette for 57 billion euros in 2005, the analysts called it the purchase of the century. The acquisition united two giants of consumer goods, with Gillette generating approximately 6.2 billion euros annually, making it one of the most profitable divisions of P&G. Before 2019, Gillette maintained more than 70% of the global market share in premium razors. They had built an empire that seemed absolutely and completely untouchable. This empire was built upon a simple promise that would soon become its greatest weakness. I'm absolutely sure you remember the phrase, "the best a man can get." It was everywhere. The phrase debuted during Super Bowl 23 in 1989, and it instantly embedded itself in the American cultural vocabulary. Within a matter of months, men all across the country were repeating it, believing it, and living under that motto. Gillette had captured something profoundly deep in the masculine psychology. The slogan promised that using their products elevated a man above the ordinary. It suggested that excellence in personal care reflected excellence in character. Each and every purchase became a declaration of personal standards. The celebrities reinforced that message during decades of advertising campaigns. The movie stars used Gillette before stepping onto the red carpet. The emotional connection was so much bigger than the advertising. The slogan translated perfectly in the international markets, establishing American masculine ideals throughout the entire world. European, Latin American, and Asian men began to associate Gillette with success and superiority. Other razor companies fought desperately and relentlessly to match that emotional resonance and cultural penetration. The men developed lifetime purchasing habits based completely and entirely on that emotional connection. They paid premium prices because they believed strongly that they were buying superiority. The slogan justified each and every single price increase, every new product launch, every advertising campaign. 30 full years of consistent messaging built an incalculable brand value, valued in the thousands of millions. The phrase appeared in movies, television programs, and comedy routines as a convenient shortcut to represent masculine confidence and achievement. Everything was going absolutely perfectly for the company. But in 2018, the executives at Gillette decided that this legendary and iconic slogan needed to be reinvented. And the best way to modernize the brand, they thought, was to hand over the creative control to Kim Gehrig, a woman. Not just any woman. A woman who was famous and notorious for her contempt toward men. She definitely wasn't a usual choice to reinvent a masculine razor brand. The Australian director, based in London, had built her entire career creating controversial feminist campaigns. Among her previous works were explicit campaigns that celebrated female anatomy and challenged masculine authority in ways that made even the most open-minded marketing executives uncomfortable. But that discomfort was exactly what the advertising agency Grey New York was actively looking for. The Grey agency was specifically seeking out directors who brought radical perspectives to traditionally masculine brands. They wanted to completely abandon the traditional masculine message in favor of social justice themes and progressive messaging. The internal meetings were absolutely full of enthusiasm about evolving the conversation and challenging outdated stereotypes. The moment seemed ideal and perfect. The Me Too movement was dominating the headlines worldwide, and the American corporate world was rushing to position itself on the right side of history. The executives saw a golden opportunity to capitalize on the cultural moment in which the men were being held accountable for their bad behavior. Gehrig and her entire team believed strongly that traditional masculinity was inherently harmful and that it needed to be completely rebuilt. Their creative proposal sought nothing less than to completely redefine what it meant to be a man in modern America. They approached the entire project with an almost missionary fervor and dedication. Not a single man was consulted during the entire creative process about how the message would be received by the target audience. It was assumed that the masculine perspectives were part of the problem that needed to be resolved. Female executives within Procter & Gamble fully backed this radical approach, despite the warnings from marketing veterans who clearly understood the risks. The campaign was planned as a global initiative to reform the masculine culture in all international markets. It would be launched simultaneously in dozens of countries around the world, guaranteeing maximum cultural impact. Let's say it clearly and directly. What these women created was not well received at all. The advertisement titled "We Believe" broke all records by becoming the most hated advertisement in the entire history of YouTube. On January 13th of 2019, the short film of almost 2 minutes in length was published simultaneously on all of Gillette's social media platforms at exactly 9 a.m. Eastern Time. The marketing executives gathered together in conference rooms to monitor the reaction, expecting the usual mixture of praise and mild criticism that typically accompanies brand campaigns. Instead, they watched in horror as their entire world crumbled in real time. During the first hour alone, the negative comments began to arrive much faster than the moderators could possibly delete them. The men expressed feeling attacked, betrayed, and insulted by a brand they had trusted for decades. The comments section became a digital battlefield where years of loyalty transformed into fury. By midday, the dislike counter had surpassed 50,000. By nightfall, it reached 200,000. And in less than 24 hours, more than 400,000 people had marked dislike, in comparison with a minimal fraction that showed approval. The number of views told an even more devastating story. More than 5 million people watched the advertisement on its first day, but they did so driven by indignation, not by admiration. Each view represented a potential customer learning to hate the brand. The social platforms became overloaded by coordinated resistance campaigns. Boycott Gillette became a worldwide trend, while the customers organized their fury into a concrete rebellion. Instead of an advertisement for razors, the video was perceived as a direct attack on men, suggesting that all of them were guilty of crimes similar to those exposed by the Me Too movement, that the boys would grow up to commit them, that all males were guilty of some imaginary crime. The men started to publish videos destroying their razors, cutting up Gillette products, and publicly switching to competitor brands. These viral destruction videos accumulated many more millions of views than the original advertisement. The YouTube algorithm began to work against Gillette, suppressing the original video while promoting critical content. Each and every related search led to parodies, reactions, and angry comments that amplified the negative message even further. The negative reaction spread internationally with a terrifying speed. The men in Canada joined the boycott initiated in the United States. The Australian customers published furious reviews. The European markets exploded with the same anger as the campaign was deployed globally. The television networks began to cover the story, transforming a marketing campaign into a cultural war that dominated the news cycles for weeks. While the internet burned with fury, The real destruction was happening at the cash registers throughout all of the United States. The sales plummeted in a nosedive. The industry analysts would calculate later that Gillette lost in 6 months more money than many companies earn in a decade. The financial devastation began immediately. The retail partners from all over the country reported dramatic drops in purchases of Gillette products during the first week after the campaign launch. The Walmart executives watched as the shelves remained full while the customers passed right by toward the competition sections. The Target managers noticed an increase in returns, with loyal customers returning unused products. The independent analyst Georgie spent months examining the financial damages. His research revealed that Gillette lost approximately €350 million in revenue during the 6 months following the advertisement. The dominant market share of Gillette began to erode at an unprecedented speed. For decades, they had maintained more than 70% of the control of the premium razor market. The competitors had tried everything to break that dominance. Better technology, lower prices, celebrities, nothing had worked against the power of customer loyalty. The We Believe campaign achieved what thousands upon thousands of millions in competitor advertising spending had not been able to accomplish. Destroy that customer fidelity. Harry's razors gained an absolutely enormous market share while the men actively searched for alternatives. The subscriptions to Dollar Shave Club absolutely skyrocketed. Even Schick, a traditional and long-standing competitor, experienced its best sales growth in many years, seeing how the former Gillette customers switched brands in a permanent and definitive way. The damage was not limited to the razors alone. The sales of shaving creams plummeted dramatically. The post-shave products were completely forgotten on the shelves. The personal care accessories accumulated dust everywhere. The Gillette brand had become completely toxic in entire categories of products. The quarterly earnings reports of Procter & Gamble told the complete story of the disaster in corporate language. The grooming division showed constant and steady drops throughout all of 2019. The revenues went down significantly. The profit margins became compressed and squeezed. The market share eroded continuously quarter after quarter. The factories had to significantly reduce the production in the face of falling demand. The supply chains were severely interrupted. The operational efficiency suffered greatly while the company adapted to requirements of much lower volume. Unlike the typical marketing controversies, which usually fade away in weeks, the sales of Gillette remained severely depressed for years. The damage turned out to be completely permanent, not temporary at all. As the financial carnage increased dramatically, all eyes turned to the leadership of Gillette, looking desperately for answers. Upon being confronted with a massive depreciation of €8 billion, Gary Coombe, the president of P&G Global Grooming, made a statement that shocked the entire business world and sealed the fate of his brand forever. The growing public criticism and the catastrophic financial losses demanded answers. The industry observers expected regret, a course correction, perhaps even